good.
I call to order this special meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, March 23rd, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Bornstein?
Here.
Trustee Clark is noted absent. Trustee Friedman is noted absent. Trustee Romanella?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Before us, we have a agenda. There are no modifications to a special meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve agenda as written.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes. That motion passes 5-0. First item on the agenda, checks over 5,000. Mr. Foreman, is there any additional questions or concerns or information on this? Okay, did the board have any questions? No. I'll look for a motion to approve checks over 5,000.
I move to approve checks over 5,000.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second.
Second.
Third.
Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Resolutions. Resolution number 07-2020, resolution declaring a local disaster emergency in and for the town of Monument. Mr. Foreman.
As you know, many towns are creating resolutions declaring a local disaster emergency in and for their towns. I believe that we need to do this also. We're a statutory municipal town governed by the Board of Trustees. The board has the authority to do all acts and make all regulations which may be necessary or expedient for the promotion of health and the suppression of disease. Jared Polis, the governor of the state of Colorado, declared a statewide state of emergency in response to COVID-19. President Donald Trump declared a national emergency in response to COVID-19. On March 13th, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environmental announced the death of an El Paso County resident from COVID-19. Also, El Paso County announced a local disaster emergency in response. The Colorado Disaster Emergency Act provides procedures for statewide and local prevention of, preparation for, response to, and recovery from disasters and emergencies. Section 709 of the Act permits only the town board to declare a local disaster for any period longer than 7 days. Section 709 of the Act activates the response and recovery aspects of any applicable disaster emergency plans and authorizes the furnishing of aid and assistance under such plans. The above described conditions constitute a disaster under Section 703 of the Act. And whereas protecting the health and property of the town's residents is the board's top priority, I request that the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument declare a local disaster emergency in and for the Town of Monument, Colorado. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Now, this is mainly to help fund any obstacles we run into this during the COVID-19 thing taking place, correct?
Yes, and also it helps us with our reimbursement from FEMA and the federal government.
Right. Questions from the board?
I just had one question, and I hope it never happens. Mike, obviously you're chartering this as the town manager, but just the what-if game, because reading, if for some reason you were contaminated and you were out of the process for X amount of time, who moves into your spot?
So currently we have succession planning in the town, and currently Tom Varnish would move into my spot. After that, if he was affected, it would be Laura Hogan. and then the chief of police also is lined up for that. The chief of police also has a succession plan in his organization. We are currently operating separate from each other, so the chief and Commander Hudson operate separately, and then me and Tom Thonish operate separately. And we are practicing social distancing, but also most of our employees are working from home right now. We're still able to operate the town, we're able to pay bills, we're able to receive receipts from people. So we're pretty much operating the town just as we normally do, just from a outside the building operation. But Tom Thonish, to answer your question, Tom Thonish fill in my role unless the board decided to make a decision at that time.
Which the board would have the authority to do.
We would.
Yes. And one reason we did it this way is under town ordinance, if the mayor declares a state of emergency or declaration of emergency, it only lasts, what, 48 hours? And then the board has to do it anyway. So it was easier for us to do it like this than try to do two of them.
Is there a time limit on this?
This is only until this expire, either I can say it expires, but it has to be affirmed by the board within 7 days, I believe.
So is what you're saying is if you say it expires within 7 days, the board has to confirm that?
I think that's how it's written in here.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
And then hypothetically, if, and I don't wish this upon you, Mike, if you were in the contamination mode and your successor, that would come to the board to deem if Tom, I mean, my suggestion, because I think you have more knowledge, if that did occur, my suggestion would be, because I know the chief has his other entity, is to have Ms. Hogan and Tom together.
Right.
I think that's a really good business decision for the town, because I think there's strengths between them that things would go very smoothly.
I agree. You noticed when I'm on vacation and stuff like that, all our directors work together. It's not just one person in charge. They all work together, they meet together, and they solve problems together. I wouldn't expect anything different here.
So I'm just proposing if that did occur, rather than the board having to do 911, is if it goes into that phase two, that Mr. Thornish and Ms. Hogan are wearing the hats at that time. I don't know if you agree or not. I just think they can pull off each other. I think Mike has more experience as the TM. I think this would be beneficial for the town, and then you don't have to call emergency type meetings if that happened.
Well, I think what Mr. Foreman's saying is their practice, the town employees, the heads of the departments, their practice is to work together anyway, regardless of who has the title hat.
Right, I'm just saying a formality, because, I mean, we've never done one of these before.
Right.
So I think just to delegate, I think it's just a good business decision, so they know right away they're going into the mode. So it's only a suggestion.
Right, and I think you understand that suggestion. I don't know that we can give direction in a special meeting.
I'll make that happen. No, you gotta understand too, if I just come down with it, I'll still be operating from my house. You know, a lot of the things that I do can be done via email and phone. You don't see me out here doing a lot of manual labor and stuff like that. So a lot of things I can still do if I don't succumb to the illness. You know, I think that's what you're concerned about, is if I was to succumb from it. If I just get the illness, most likely I'm still gonna be able to run the town from my house.
Yeah, so, all right, well, duly noted, Mayor, you shared that with them, so thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Just to clarify, Mr. Foreman, and actually just for the public, how are you and Chief working together with Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management? Are there
So-
meetings you're going to, or how is that working right now?
So we just got off a phone call with them today. We have several phone calls a week with different agencies. Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management is one of the entities that we meet with. We discuss with city managers, police chiefs, the hospitals, the school district, and everything about what their plans are, where they're at in their plan. what we're doing, what the updates are. So we do that about twice a week. We also meet with the governor's office now twice a week. We're having conference calls with them. We had a conference call today with Senator Gardner. So we're in on that. So we're participating in a lot of conference calls and just keeping up to date with what's going on in the state, what's going on in the country, but also what's going on locally in our county, and seeing what other organizations are doing and using best practices going forward.
Okay. And also, just to clarify for our live stream viewers, you'll be following Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management's directives, and if you veer off that, you need to let the board know
Exactly. That's exactly right.
if for some reason you disagree with something they're doing.
Right.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the board?
I just have a comment. I would call, this gives you a lot of authority, and I would say the vast majority of it, I agree with, using our resources and availing ourselves of funds that are involved in that. But I'm not, you've seen the emails from Trustee Clark. I'm not unsympathetic to her position or some of her points. For example, one thing that does concern me is where you have in here the directing and compelling the evacuation of all or part of the population from a stricken, for stricken or threatening areas. To me, that makes sense if we're dealing with a flood or if we're dealing with a fire. But if we're dealing with a pandemic, what you've just done by ordering something like that would be to spread it all over because people have to go to their family and find someplace else to live. So anyway, I think certain things, and I know, it's like there's this panic that's coming over everybody, and I guess in the midst of a panic, what I'm concerned about is that decisions get made real quickly in an effort to get ahead of it, but at the same time, the process of thinking things out all the way, what might happen, is what I strongly encourage you to really take the time and don't give in to the pressure to do that. Because things like this, I'm not a doctor, but to me that just makes absolutely no sense to do something like that. The other thing that kind of concerns me is the closing of businesses and things like that. Now, it makes sense for, restaurants and bars and, bars and certain places where people are congregating to be closed. But I would encourage you to allow the businesses to be creative. Like I went down to Best Buy this weekend, and they were doing something that I thought was fabulous. They said, okay, we're not letting anybody into the store, but you can go online, you can place your order, and then come here, and we'll put it in your trunk for you, and off you go. And so whether the restaurants are doing delivery or they want to do carry out, or whether, those kinds of things, one of the closures that has been ordered has been for the schools and the child care. And that makes sense, but there are complications with every decision that's made. Right now, the next crisis that's coming up as a result of that decision is there are doctors, there are nurses, there are emergency workers that can't go to work because they have to take care of their kids. They're single parents. And so right now, they're struggling to deal with that kind of an issue. So anyway, there are a lot of things that are unintended consequences, and I know in the midst of a panic, it's tough to think all those things out, but I would strongly encourage you before you make, a major decision that you discuss it with people and make sure that those things are taken into consideration.
Definitely. Hopefully you've seen in the past week that we haven't panicked. Our staff has worked hard to get to where we are today. We worked together as a team. The evacuation of the town, that's a huge decision. And I will bring in everybody that I know to help me make that decision. That was something that we were directed to do. A lot of these things are directions from the governor or from the president. And so you've noticed that some of the things like closing of restaurants and things like that are directives from the governor. And so we follow those orders. We did just like this meeting here. You don't see more than 10 people in here. We actually have the ability to have more than 10 from the governor. We got a special dispensation for that, but we also promoted that we wouldn't have more than 10 in here, and so we had plans for that. The closing of businesses, you know me, I'm in support of business. Me and the chief and all of our staffs have been in support of our businesses. We've worked with them to make sure that they're open as much as they can be. But the governor's doing that also. We've had a lot of conversations about how we approach that. And so we are definitely pro-business. We've been working with the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support our business. I was on a call today with the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and getting some ideas from them on how they're keeping their businesses open and how their employees are supporting those businesses. So we will always do that.
Okay, thank you.
Just
With-
one comment, Mr. Mayor, and obviously it's different for every entity and municipality, and in this case, yeah, we're empowering the TM, but I would hope if a decision had to be made outside the basics of what's happening, the governor and the president, before you implemented, you would reach out to the board. I think that's a very good business decision. I think my colleague made a great point, is, with a cause, there's an effect. I don't think we need to micromanage this. I think you're communicating very well with us. I think some things that we all should probably already know, but before you do anything relative to the town, because we can have discussions on whether the 4 or 5 governors in the United States are overreactive, but that's for beer time. So, I mean, if you would commit to that, I think that would make some trustees that aren't here tonight feel a little bit better. So you're just not doing things and they go, well, what's that about? So.
Definitely, you've seen me here about 15 months, and you've seen my actions, and there hasn't been, I can't think of one time that I've made too many decisions that I haven't consulted with the board, especially on something as important as this.
Okay.
I'll always consult on the board if it's gonna be a decision that's gonna have tremendous ramifications for this town.
Okay, I think that's a very fair answer. Thank you.
Well, I think a lot of this also has to do with the fact on, what we're gonna talk about next or in the future is that, having that kind of authority, just to say, if the legislature's cut off and we can't meet, that's a problem. We need to be able to meet in some way so that we can talk about this as things go on, which has to do with the next point. So we're kind of voting on one thing ahead of the other, which, or maybe not, I don't know. But we, because now what you have, is what your concern is, that, and then, of course, as long as the mayor is of sound mind and body to make the call that the town manager's out of control, then we can do that. So that's really the key. I just want to be able to make sure that the legislative body can act. That's my big concern in this. So that's my comment.
So my request and the TM being very supportive, before any action items the board, the mayor's communicated to, this is something that probably needs to be added to this resolution, just so it's documented there. So it just doesn't happen after the fact. And I have all the trust in the world in the TM myself, but I think representing those that chose not to be here or couldn't be here tonight, so at least we know that the board's still involved. Because around the country, we're seeing that boards are fully involved, and this is okay, but just to document that communication prior to any actions that are taken that implicate the town for whatever reason, I would like to see that added.
I'm just making sure it's not in there because I know it's been discussed or I saw it in one of the previous.
I read and I might have missed it, but I couldn't find it. I mean, it's a pretty easy bullet, and I think we're all in agreement.
So would you like a section 3, item E, the town manager will notify the board of all actions outside of daily,
I think it's only relative to actions.
because we have it in, I'm sorry, we have it in the part that, where if he goes outside of what, so that brings up another question, but we'll get to that in a second. if he goes outside of what Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management is doing, he has, it's in there that he has to notify, the board.
Prior to implementation of whatever he's
If you,
looking,
if you look under B, number 2, informs the town board in writing of such modification and reason for the same.
prior to implementing, not after the fact. And that's just communication. I think you have some very sharp people up
It says
here.
immediately. It says
But,
immediately.
well, but that immediately could be read after the fact. I'm saying prior to implementation. I think that's important, so nothing is put into place beyond what we're following from our other jurisdictions without conversing with the board, because 9 out of 10 times the board, yeah, that's great. I mean, he has full support. But just so we know, so we don't have to read in the paper, hear it on the news, or going, well, was that a good decision? I don't think that's gonna happen, but I think that has to be notated.
Well, it says I have to notify you immediately, and then within 7 days, we have to have a board meeting.
That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking before, if you were gonna shut down parks and Monument, before you shut down those parks, the board would need to be notified and your reasoning, and then you get the support of the board, or the board might say, hey, let's regroup on that. That's what I'm saying. Not 7 days after something's implemented, because that plays no factor.
I think in order to do that, we'd have to have a board meeting. I can't ask each one of you if I can do something without having a board meeting. I can't do it individually.
Yeah, it says here that we have 7 days to meet and approve the proposal that he has.
Okay, so we're doing it before it's implemented.
Right.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Then I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Then I read it and misunderstood it.
Okay, it
Okay,
is.
I'm good then. Thank you very much. Perfect.
So one last question. I know this is taking a little longer. As far as like what Trustee Bornstein's talking about, and this might not even be a question for you, but as a statutory town, we don't have much room to vary from what the state's doing, correct? So you're not gonna be, I mean, we really don't even have the authority unless it's an absolute local emergency, like Trustee Bornstein was saying, at one of our parks,
Right.
to do anything outside of what
State's
the state
requires to do.
is doing. Okay. Any further comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Motion for resolution number 07-2020, a resolution declaring a local disaster emergency in and for the town of Monument, Colorado.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes, that motion passes 6-0. Next item, Resolution B. Resolution number 082020, resolution adopting a remote participation and remote meeting policy. Mr. Foreman.
Due to COVID-19, we would like to limit the amount of in-person meetings that we have. I think the president and the governor would like to limit those. So we have the ability to participate in remote meetings, but we need to set up a remote meeting policy. And so before you, we've presented a remote meeting policy, and I'll be glad to go over that with you if you want me to, or if you've read it, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. I think the key point is here, the policy shall apply only during emergency or disaster situation as declared by the town. So, to your earlier comment, we have to have a disaster or have a declaration of emergency prior to having a remote meeting.
Okay.
Other,
Well, go ahead, sorry.
nope, go ahead.
I think we need that. I mean, I think that this isn't going to be the first or last time that this kind of thing happens moving forward. And we need to have something in place that we can function properly, but also not, make way for people not being here. So I agree with that.
Okay. The other key point to this, I think, is making sure that the community can participate. And Mr. Rivera did call me about that because it was one of my concerns. We will, if we find that that we have a number of people saying they can't hear, we will recess and see if town staff can correct the problem. Or if it continues, we'll adjourn until we get the issue fixed.
And that happened today on one of our calls, and they did have to stop it, reset, and once they reset it, it came on perfect.
Okay.
But we had the same thing with the Chamber of Commerce in Colorado Springs.
I'd also like to put in that I think that if we do this, I would very much like to keep our April 6th meeting if this passes and we can do it remotely.
Will that allow enough testing time to make sure we have a
And
system?
Robert, I think we're online and ready to go, right?
We are up, we are ready to
We're
go.
up and ready. We've got the contract signed and everything's ready. We'll put more extensive instructions on our website and send those out to our citizens, make sure that they know exactly how to get on there. And we'll have that out to you too.
I am all for that, but I really want to make sure it's tested thoroughly. I mean, like somehow we have town staff acting as viewers or board members acting as viewers and participating during the areas that they can participate.
Maybe a suggestion, because some of us are down now not traveling and things, you know, and volunteering, that we can be your pilot off-site and to get it, because I do agree with Trustee Romanello. I think this next meeting's very important, because I think we got a couple of bullet items that we need to wrap up. Just by example, I know it was with the water, there was a system that needs to go, and I know that we were looking for an attorney, but I perceive these as real hot ones, hot buttons, so I appreciate what Mr. Bishop's doing, so, yeah, I think we have enough time to make sure this is foolproof, fail-safe, and then we're doing good.
I'm very concerned about, you know, from our last meeting on the attorney appointment, and from what I'm understanding, we cannot give any kind of direction during this kind of a special meeting. Is that correct?
We're staying to these topics for this meeting.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you, Robert. In regards to the WebEx, is that something where anybody gets the link and can log in and hear the audio? Will there be any sort of visual as well?
No, the public will only hear the audio. When
Okay.
you were interacting, all the board members and anybody else on that level will see the video. Public will only get audio, and they'll be able to pose questions to a moderator who will be able to pass them on to the board in real time.
Okay, thanks.
And again, this is an emergency type situation, so we're still keeping the communication open for the mayor, for the public, so great. Good.
Any further questions or comments on this resolution?
Motion?
I will take a motion.
Motion for resolution number 08-2020, a resolution adapting a remote participation and remote meeting policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanelli?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 5-0.
6?
No, 5.
Five.
5, sorry.
I think I said 6 on the
Oh,
last one.
you did on the
I
last
shouldn't.
one. I was confused. So then, just to clarify my question about April 6th, are we waiting to see what happens with technology, or are we moving forward with April 6th?
I think well, it's a regularly scheduled meeting, so it will stay in place until we cancel it.
Okay.
Correct, Ms.
Okay.
Hogan? Okay.
Thank you.
So we.
So,
oh,
motion, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.